Jeff Kerr, says there's no way Howie Roseman can screw up this draft, right? Well, not if you read CBS Sports and Jeff Kerr's piece on the blueprint for the Eagles draft, which we will dive into. The Philadelphia blueprint for a perfect draft is pretty simple, says NFL writer Jeff Kerr over at CBS, and he is set to join us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline as draft getting closer. We'll have full draft coverage Thursday, April 29th at 7 o'clock right here on 97.3 ESPN. So 3 Thursdays from now is when really the Eagles' fate will be set, because if they mess this draft up with 11 picks and the pick 12, I guess they have next year too. I mean, Howie Roseman's not going to get – well, we'll talk to Jeff about this because there's been an interesting article that came out today that we want to dive into and so much more. But Jeff Kerr's got the blueprint for a perfect draft. Let's bring him in from CBS Sports. Jeff, welcome back, man. How you been?
Hey, Mike. Doing pretty good. Quiet weekend until this Monday morning bombshell with the Eagles front office and whatever that they're doing these days. Seems like they make Doug Pearson's life a living hell.
Yeah, well, it's almost like Doug at the end was like, thank God I am out of this situation. But I want to get your opinion on this because I read that article, and I think this is going on in all sports. I think a lot of teams are dealing with the balance between they're fighting the analytics and the quote-unquote like football guy or the scout or the baseball guy. There's no balance. Like, no one has really come together and said, you respect their information and they will respect your information. It seems that there's no respect for each other's information. It's just a battle of who knows more.
Doesn't it feel like Moneyball, the scene where, Billy Bean tells the one scout when, I know, and you don't. That's what it feels like it's going on within Eagles front office, only they're not winning.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything. It's a complete waste of time at this point. And as a guy who's big in the numbers, I also played up to, again, it's only 12th grade, but still, I played varsity level football for a really good football team. And, I was kind of the same way. I'd like to view myself as a football guy that likes numbers, but it seems like the Eagles have one side of the fence and the other side of the fence, and they just can't come to a standstill. It's really bizarre. And I feel like now analytics are getting, as you said, Mike, they're getting owners more involved in this. Like Jeffrey Lurie, 15 years ago, if you would have told me Jeffrey Lurie would be involved in the day-to-day decisions of running the Philadelphia Eagles football team, I would have been like, okay, yeah, I'm sure he puts his input, but not like to the extent that we're hearing about now.
Right. Like, you mentioned the scene in Moneyball. There's also the one where Jonah Hill's character is talking to Art Howell. And Art, he's like, this is what we need you to do. And Art Howell's like, yeah, get out of my office, essentially. But until you get a level of respect between these two sides, you're going to hear more like, so are the Eagles a dysfunctional organization, or is this a dysfunctional problem in sports right now that these two sides can't see eye to eye?
I think we're blessed in the Philadelphia area that we have such good reporters that can uncover this stuff, because I feel like it goes around the entire NFL, Major League Baseball. I mean, we've heard about this with the Phillies from time to time. The Sixers had that with the Alex Rucker thing. And it feels like it has been going around, like not just the Philly franchises, but the entire league. It's just you hear more about it with the teams that are losing. And everybody keeps saying, oh, the Eagles are going to become the Bengals or they're going to become the Texans. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I just think they don't have a sense of direction in what they want to do. Kind of like how the Phillies were from about 2013 to 2018. They just kind of went full force in the analytics, and they kind of forgot about their baseball guys. And I don't think the Eagles went full force into it, but I think they're trying to lead the forefront in that. And, they're kind of leaving their football guys out of the picture. And I guess we could say Howie Roseman's the middleman in this regard.
Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you mentioned Alec Rucker from the Sixers. It sounds like this Alec Hallaby is the Eagles version, who has a lot of say and is very analytical. And it's almost like, hey, this is what it's going to be, and that the Eagles ownership is almost siding with the analytical guys over the scouts' point of view.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't know, from the story, I kind of laughed at this. Like, a lot of people wanted the Eagles to take Paris Campbell instead of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside has actually been better than Paris Campbell. So maybe Jeffrey Lurie does know how to evaluate talent a little bit, even if it's not very good. It's better than the alternative. So again, it just seems to me like it's just a big mess right now with this organization, and they all have that sense of direction. They seem to want to have a coach they can control. And I think once Doug Peterson got that Super Bowl and realized that, hey, I can do this, I can pick my coaching staff, I can do this and that, I think that's when Doug Peterson grew a backbone a little bit and said, hey, I'm not the puppet anymore, Pinocchio lost his strings and figured out he could be a real boy.
Well, with good reason. Hey, I won the Super Bowl. I should get a little bit more of a voice here, guys. I mean, come on. But obviously that doesn't seem to happen. And, of course, Doug is no longer here. You mentioned Jeff Lurie. Maybe, Paris Campbell hasn't been very special, nor has J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. But if they want to have the perfect draft this time around, number 12, what happens?
Well, number one, we can't overcomplicate this here. If Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle are both there at number 12, I don't care who they pick. You can't go wrong with either of them. Don't overthink this. Like, it's Smith or Waddle. You need that game-breaking wide receiver. I know people are saying, oh, they should go cornerback or they should do this or maybe go offensive lineman. No, the Eagles have not had a game-changing wide receiver since Terrell Owens in 2004. And look, no disrespect to Deshaun Jackson here, but I just feel like T.O. made that team go that season. He was the ultimate difference maker toward them getting to the Super Bowl. Now, getting Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle isn't going to give the Eagles the Super Bowl, but you need to surround Jalen Hurts with pass catchers. I don't know if Zach Ertz is going to be back. It doesn't appear likely he's going to be back, but you really just don't know. And I don't think Eagles are finding any partners for him, but he's your most reliable pass catcher in this offense. Jalen Reagor, we honestly don't know what he's going to be. Travis Fulgham had a great 5-game stretch, but that's it. You still have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. You have Kez Watkins. You have John Hightower. You really don't have anybody there. You need a number one wide receiver, and Smith or Waddle can provide that for you. And everything I hear about Jalen Waddle, he's going to be the next Tyreek Hill, if not close to it. And if you're the Eagles, you got to love that. You got to start thinking to yourself, oh, man, we could have like a better version of Deshaun Jackson. We got to have our own version of Tyreek Hill. And, with Jalen Hurts' speed, this is going to be fun. Like, if Jalen Hurts rolls out of the pocket and finds Jalen Waddle wide open down the sideline, Eagles fans are going to love it. They could be a bad football team, but they could be very exciting here. So, yeah, here's the thing. Smith or Waddle, number 12, if they're both there, or if one of those big three are there, get them.
11 picks, a lot of ammunition. So, do you get a little crazy on draft night and get yourself back into this first round? Do you think that this is a first round that you want to get a second pick in?
Yeah, this is my plan B here. So say they go cornerback. I'm not going to be upset here because you get Patrick Surtain, you get J.C. Horn. It's like, okay, you got a guy next to Darius Slay. Awesome. You can trade back in the first round because you have 2 third-round picks and that number 37 pick. Ammunition, get back in the first round. Go get a Terrence Marshall Jr. and Elijah Moore, Rashad Bateman, Kadarius Toney. There's still going to be good wide receivers. I don't think they're going to be as great as Waddle will be, but I think they're going to be very productive wide receivers in this league. And if you're an Eagles fan, you can't tell me you'd be upset if you got a Patrick Surtain or a J.C. Horn, and they're a very good starting quarterback for a long time, and you get a good wide receiver with that extra first-round pick. And then you'll pick till I guess it would be pick 84 because I think the 70th pick would be more ammunition there. But still, you have 2 third-round picks. Trade up in this draft. Find a way to get an impact player. Oh, and if you draft Smith or Waddle, you could still get one of those cornerbacks. Maybe Caleb Farley slips, or maybe you reach a little bit. I don't think it's a reach to get Asante Samuel Jr. in the first round, but again, it's very possible. Maybe Greg Newsome's going to be there in the 20s. Again, these aren't the players that I feel that can make an impact to this football team right away. And this is the key here. You got to get starters. You can't just get role players. You got to get starters and impact players. And if you can do that at cornerback and wide receiver with 2 first-round picks, I'm all for it.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, covers the NFL. What about last year they took Jalen Hurts in the second round, and that caused a firestorm. Is there a pick that could happen at 12 that would have a similar reaction?
Maybe if they draft an offensive lineman, I mean, say they draft Rashad Slater or Christian Darrisaw. I don't think they need one of those guys. I wouldn't be against it, but at the same time, you really don't know what you have at left tackle. As we talked last week, Mike, Jordan Mailata, he's shown promise. I think he's got a lot of potential. I think you should give him more time, especially since you invested so much into him. But you still have Andre Dillard, who's a first-round pick there, and you have Lane Johnson on the right side. So why would you need to draft another tackle? But again, everybody says football's won in the trenches, and I agree there. Maybe if they draft a guy like I'm trying to think here. I can never pronounce the guy's name. Kitty Pieway, the defensive end from Michigan. Maybe, Kwity Paye. That's it, Kwity Paye. I can never pronounce that guy's name. But yeah, say they draft him. Everybody would be like, why are they drafting an edge rusher? But it actually would make a lot of sense for them because Brandon Graham, he's going to be 33 years old. Josh Sweat, again, good player. We don't know how much of an impact he can fully be. Derek Barnett, same thing. You might want to move on from him after this year. He might be overpaid if he doesn't have a big year. Jannard Avery, really, besides one game, you don't know what you got out of him. But yeah, if you're focusing on the pass rush, if you get a guy like him, why not? And, he can line up on the inside, can line up on the outside. I really don't think there could be a major firestorm at 12. Personally, again, I went to Penn State. I've watched Micah Parsons play before Penn State because I'm a high school football nut, and he's one of the best high school football players Pennsylvania has ever seen. If the Eagles drafted Michael Parsons at 12 and actually drafted a linebacker for the first time in, 42 years, I would be ecstatic because he is that game changer on defense you need. And in Jonathan Gannon's defense, I think you need that. I think you need a downhill runner that can find the football, that forces fumbles, that can cover. Everybody says Michael Parsons can't cover. If you say that, you haven't watched Michael Parsons play football enough. This guy is potentially the best defensive player in the draft. He is the one guy I feel that could be, and again, a little bit biased here, but he's the one guy I feel that if you had to pick a guy who's going to be a 5-time All-Pro on defense, I believe it's him. And look, he's got the pedigree. I know they say that's a lazy take, when they say about, Justin Fields won't be good in the NFL because he's an Ohio State quarterback. Well, is it lazy to say Michael Parsons comes from a pedigree of all-star linebackers at Penn State? No. So, again, the track record speaks for itself, and he might have been one of the best of the bunch if he played this year all time. So, Again, I feel like this guy could have an LeVar Arrington-type impact. Without the injury. But if the Eagles were able to get him, pair him with Eric Wilson, Alex Singleton, man, they could have a really good linebacker.
Yeah, I'm not against taking Parsons. I would ask you this, Jeff. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, does a great job covering the NFL with a focus on the Eagles here today. And, of course, the thought of, hey, they're going to run cover 2. They got no corner at all. If you're going to run cover 2, you better have someone better than Avonte Maddox over there. So I know that a lot of people like to go best player available, but do you go best player available with a focus on the need of our corner situation such a disaster?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think it's wrong if you draft a cornerback at 12 based on need or best player available because it's very possible the best player available could be a cornerback. It all depends on their board, but again, this is where I think it's going to be really tough to have at 12, and I think the Eagles knew this. Well, if we're at 6, we're really in a pickle here because we could overdraft the player. But at 12, it seems like a lot of guys are going to fall in their lap just based on how the board's going with quarterback. You might have the choice between Michael Parsons. Maybe Patrick Surtain might be there. J.C. Horn. I think there are rumors Kyle Pitts could actually fall that low. Then what do you do?
Yeah.
I don't think that's actually going to happen.
Well,
I don't think he'll go past
Kyle Pitts. If Kyle Pitts is at 8 or 9, don't you have to make aren't you on the phone making like every phone call that you can at 8 and 9 and saying we've got to get to that spot?
Oh, I agree. And here the only problem is Carolina needs Kyle Pitts just as bad too because they didn't have a tight end. So I'm thinking here, you trade one of those future first-round picks if you have to. I think that's a little too much to move up 4 spots. But, I think if he falls to 8 or 9, you got to make that call and say, look, we got to get who – a lot of people have told me this. He is the best player in this draft. Better than Trevor Lawrence. Better than whoever. He is the best player in this draft. If the best player in this draft falls to 8 or 9, you have to take that shot.
Yeah, no, I think if there's one guy, maybe Chase, if he fell for whatever reason and he started to slip, that Howie Roseman would have to get on the phone and say, all right, Chase is at 8 or 9. I've got to do something because for two things. One, you're not getting him at 10 or 11 because Dallas and New York is not going to acquiesce to you trying to move up to get the player you want in the top 10. That's for sure.
Oh, I agree. And, back to the Jamar Chase thing. If he falls past the Dolphins at 6, that's the other team. I'm calling up. I am trying to trade up to 7. I'm trying to trade up to 8. I'm trying to make sure I get Jamal Chase on my team. Here's the problem. I think the Denver Broncos are going to try to trade up. I think the Atlanta Falcons are going to try to trade down. I think Carolina Panthers still may try to trade up, but I think they'll stay at 8 right now. It all depends what happens with that Dolphins thing. I mean, the Dolphins could easily take Kyle Pitts and call it a day, but yeah, I think those are, in my opinion, the two guys you call up for no matter what, Jamar Chase and Kyle Pitts.
Yep, I would agree with that. Jeff Kerr is with us. I want to get your take. You just wrote a piece kind of outlining what was written at The Athletic today, but was there something in there? Because we've heard a lot of this, like, Howie Roseman's the problem and the Jeffrey Lurie's got a little too much power, but was there anything else in that article that stood out and kind of raised some major red flags to you?
I think to me was the one quote, Peterson was ridiculed and criticized for every decision. If you won by 3, it wasn't enough. If you lost on a last-second field goal, you're the worst coach in history. It feels like that Little League team or that travel AAU team, like, it's not worth winning if you can't win big. And that's what it felt like Doug Pearson was going. And, he's getting just grilled in Tuesday meetings. Like, you don't even look forward to doing it by two guys you know more football than. It's really upsetting as a coach. It's like, okay, like, for example, it just feels like the Eagles were I'm trying to think of good pop culture. Oh, remember the Titans when basically they were waiting for Herman Boone to lose so they could fire him. It felt like the 2017 Eagles season was they were hoping Doug Pearson would lose a couple games so they could fire him and turn the team over to Jim Schwartz. And it just never happened. And he kept winning and his team kept believing in him. And I think Doug Pearson knew that and maybe inspired his team to do that. And the whole Brian Dawkins speaking to, giving one of those emotional speeches the front office guy, that was something too. But it just seems like Doug Peterson was I don't want to say he was behind the 8 ball, but it felt like he was always battling a losing war from day one, where defending Frank Reich or trying to keep Mike Rowe, and then they double-crossed him. I mean, personally, I think, me personally, and I know it's hard to actually say this, but if a team would fire my offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach to double-cross me like that, even though I agreed with the decision at the time, I would be hard-pressed not to keep that job. Because I would just say, you know what, I'm out.
It's wild that it got to this because people questioned why you even hired Peterson to begin with. It was almost like you hired this guy and then even questioned your own hiring by doing what you did to this guy.
Exactly. It's like, oh, man, we couldn't get Adam Gase, which thank God they couldn't get Adam Gase. Or, we couldn't get Ben McAdoo. Again, thank God we couldn't get Ben McAdoo. And we just settled on Doug Pearson. It's like the girlfriend you're just keeping around at this point because you want to date somebody. Well, no, this is stupid. Why'd you, again, Mike, why would you hire this guy? I don't understand it. And Doug Pearson that thought had to be creeping in the back of his head, like, man, why does this team even want me at this point? Like, I'm just going to show them off. I'm just going to keep winning. And, you can't fire a guy that keeps winning unless he leaves on his own. And I always thought that would be the case. Doug would leave on his own. It just never happened. And by the way, the whole Howie Roseman paranoia thing, I don't believe some of the stuff I saw on Twitter today. Oh, every organization has a paranoid GM. No, they don't. They do not have a paranoid GM. That's not true. Howie Roseman is just very insecure with himself.
Yeah.
I like the guy personally. I defend Howie Roseman a lot, but he's very insecure with himself. You can tell. He doesn't like what you think of him, Mike. He doesn't like what I think of him. He doesn't like what anybody thinks of him.
Unless Jeff, if you were to ask my listeners, they think that Howie Roseman pays me because I, like you, defend him to some extent because I just think that it's just people are so irrational about it. But I agree with what you're saying is, look, Howie does – he built a Super Bowl champion. Like this team, I say this all the time, Jeff, when you think about this organization when Howie's been here, he is the most hated sports figure that I think I've ever covered. And all the team has done is won while he's been here. They have won back-to-back losing season in 25 years. 25 years they have won back-to-back, and they went 7-9. It wasn't like they went 3-13 2 years in a row. They went 7-9 back-to-back seasons. That's the only time. So I feel like he gets a terrible rap, and I think a lot of it's because people just if his name was Howie Roseman and he looked like Joe Douglas, I don't think people would hate him as much. It's just that they don't like the way he talks, they don't like the way he looks, they don't like the way he dresses, and it doesn't help that he's missed up, some draft picks. But I feel that he is probably one of the more misunderstood guys. However, I do agree with you that he should have thicker skin and be more prominent in his role. That, hey, I built a Super Bowl champion, yet he is very thin-skinned, and I think that's one of the reasons why people can't connect with him.
Yeah, and exactly, Mike. And I even tweeted this today with Howie Roseman. I just wish Howie Roseman or Jeffrey Lurie would learn to trust more people not named Howie Roseman. But that's not Howie Roseman's fault. I think Howie Roseman does trust some of the guys in there, but I think he also – the only time Howie Roseman uses his ego is when he flashes that Super Bowl ring and say, "Oh, look what I did. Did you do this?"
Well, the
Or,
story, Jeff, that, he had learned from some of his mistakes, but then it's almost like he's reverting back to some of the mistakes he made, and it's actually worse now.
Exactly. And, this is where I agree with you too, Mike. Like, I know I get the misconception all the time as a member of the national media. Oh, you have to be nice so the Eagles can give you what you want. I'm like, I hate to tell you this. The Eagles never give me what I want.
Guess what?
So,
the Eagles haven't answered one of my emails in a long time, so no.
And when they do, they want to know where I got some information. I'm like, oh, now I exist.
Yeah, exactly. Until they happen to tune in and have a guest on that they don't like what the guest had to say. Yeah, I haven't spoken to I don't even know who's up at the Eagles anymore, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, once the guy went to Buffalo, who was the
Derek Boyko.
Yeah, once Boyko left, I don't know who's in charge up there. I don't know what's going on. So I'm just giving. I said I'm not looking at Roseman as a fan of the team. I'm just giving an objective view. Yeah, he's got flaws, but there's a reason why national publications and everybody universally, we're going back 5 to 6 years, Jeff, have had him ranked as a top 10 general manager in this league.
Yeah, and honestly, if I did a ranking of the top general managers now, he would probably be in the top 15. No doubt about it. If you look around, and that's the thing, I think Eagles fans live in that bubble. They live in the bubble where it's only their team, and they're trying to compare themselves to Washington, Dallas, and New York. Well, I hate to tell you, that's a bad barometer to compare yourself to. Look, a lot of people like to criticize John Snyder, the Seahawks GM. I think he's a great GM. I think he takes a lot of risk, and I think he basically told Russell Wilson, if I want to keep my job, I'm not trading you. So I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Jason Litt, who used to work in the Eagles for example. I always thought Jason Litt was a good GM, but now that he landed the fish in Tom Brady. Now he can get it wherever he wants. Now he's a genius. Brett Veach, same thing, another guy in the Eagles organization. These guys all work together with Howie Roseman. And I've heard stories about Roseman too. If you double cross him, you're out. Well, again, but Jeffrey Lurie knows how to hire talent because he hired these guys and he keeps Roseman around. I mean, Roseman might have been, the most, how can I say it, the top prospect of his front office chain for all we know. It just seems really tough. Howie Roseman's just in an unwinnable position, even when he wins the Super Bowl. Like, I get he can't draft. I get that. But Joe Douglas can't draft either. I don't know what the Joe Douglas love is about. He's buying time in New York. That's why he traded Sam Darnold for, and going to draft Zach Wilson so he can get another 2-3 years there. Because guess what? Joe Douglas is just as responsible for Rasul Douglas and Cindy Jones and all these guys too. But Howie Roseman, not a football guy.
Correct. There you go. You just said it. Joe Douglas is a football guy. Howie Roseman is not. You know how many people who fight and say that Roseman had nothing to do with building the Super Bowl team? That was all Joe Douglas. So if it's all Joe Douglas who built the Super Bowl team, then why doesn't he get blamed for the poor drafts? You can't say he only did the good and not the bad. It's unbelievable. But, hey, that's I'll tell you this. As much as I said I think Roseman gets too much heat, I think now this draft and next draft, these are on him.
Oh, I agree. And you know what? I didn't think Howie Roseman was going to survive this year. I really didn't. And in the back of my mind, I really didn't think it was going to happen. I thought Jeffrey Lurie was actually going to clean house. And then when things started leaking out, I'm like, all right, maybe he is going to stay. And you know what? I think Jeffrey Lurie is saying that Howie Roseman, a buddy of his, and again, I always say this, if I owned the Eagles, all my buddies would be right in the organization with me, and I would trust them. I would trust them to the bitter end. And I think that's what Jeffrey Lurie's doing with Howie Roseman. He goes, You created the mess. Go fix it.
See, that's why I've been having you on, Jeff, and the opportunity, if you get into the organization, I want a job.
Oh, you know what, Mike? I'd hire everybody at this point. I'd be like, I'll give you some. Where you want to be, if you want to just be a vendor or an usher, I'll be like, yeah, what the heck? I already told my best friend from grade school, like, I'd hire him to be in the front office.
Yeah, maybe I could take Spadero's job. I'll just be like a podcaster or something. That's all.
There you go. You can be a different version of Spadaro. You can actually not agree with everything the Eagles do.
Right.
I'd be like, you know what, Mike? Go criticize my franchise. I don't care.
Good stuff. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports. Check him out. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Great stuff, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Mike. Always a blast.